Hi, everybody. Today we are going to be introducing the team Femme Noir. So I'm really super excited to speak with these ladies today and get the scoop and the tea on what their views are with Black voices in theater. So, ladies, if you want to introduce yourselves, I'll start with you, Amanda.
Hey, I am Amanda Washington. I am a director, producer, and I also teach theater at Kennesaw State University.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Watkins. I am a theater arts teacher at a middle school in Columbia, South Carolina. And I am one of the chief women of Femme Noir.
Very cool. And my name is Andrea Black, and I'll be hosting today's interview. And if you guys have any questions, that you guys being the audience have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will answer any questions you may have. So, first, I wanted to get started just by giving you guys the floor and introducing Femme Noir and telling us a bit about yourselves and what you do.
All right. So Femme Noir is a solution-based affinity group of the Women's Theater Festival, specifically a solution-based affinity group for Black women or women of color. We are here to provide resources, support, and education and sisterhood for women of color in the United States of America. And it is inclusive space recognizing the diversity of womanhood and support improvement and guidance of women of color. So that is just a little bit of the grounding basis of Femme Noir.
That's great. Very cool. So, well, you have women of color, and one of the things that I was curious about with Femme Noir is that sometimes it could take a double definition where it also is representative of the LGBTQIA community. So I wanted to see, like, is that something that you guys are also inclusive of, or what does that look like for you?
Well, Femme Noir, I mean, it mainly focuses on Black women, but we do include, of course, Black trans, men who identify as women, those type of things. So we do open it up to them. We just want to make sure that we're serving women who are not heard, who are not being appreciated, who are not getting the time and support that they need, or the information or the resources that they need. So we try to make sure we provide that content and that information and at least those resources to people.
Awesome. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi, sorry.
All right, so we're just introducing Femme Noir, what you guys represent and who you are, um, and how does one become involved with Femme Noir because it sounds really, really cool and really inclusive. So if you are a Black female who's looking for some sisterhood and want to connect with each other, how would they reach out to you? Or how would we all reach out to you?
So we're on social media at Femme Noir. We have a Facebook page, and we also have an Instagram. We also have a Twitter, and Femme, Femme, Noir, Noir. Sometimes I stutter over those words. I can't remember always how to spell them. But that's one way to get in contact with us, but also to see when we're having our monthly meetings. And we talk about grant writing. We talk about how to do makeup and costumes specifically for people of color. And then we're having how to host a successful festival. And then we're doing a lot of things in areas that amplify the woman's voice or hasn't always been given to the Black woman.
Very cool.
And we also offer gripe sessions. So that allows women to just get some things off their chest. And we have a licensed therapist that comes after every 3 sessions that we have, like a Femme Noir educational session. We always have a gripe session, which we call femmes. And they can express whatever current issues that's going on with them in their workplace or personal life, or something that's going on in the theatrical world. But we at least give them we call it like a safe space for them to talk and get it off their chest. And then the therapist gives them opportunities, different things. So they want to reach out to her and connect with her further, that can, of course. And then she also does meditation, those type of things. So we make sure that we're not only educating you, the mind, but we're also, taking care of the body as well.
That's great. Now, do y'all have a schedule that's out that has a release of all of the things that if you have questions on grant writing, is there a schedule that people can reference or they'll find that on social media?
So, Becca, did you want to answer this one?
Go ahead. You guys know Amanda, you know more about the schedule.
So right now we're on a little bit of a hiatus just so we can start planning our next season of events. But as soon as we have that out, we will be posting it to our social media pages. And you can also find it on the Women's Theater Festival page, and also type in #Femme Noir. It will take you straight to our page on there, and you will be able to see all of the group sessions that we'll be having for the 3 to 4 months following.
Very cool. And so how'd you guys all find each other, but then also what brought this idea to fruition where you decided to really focus and hone in on Black women's voices in theater?
Well, first, when I joined the board of Women's Theater Festival, I talked about how there needed to be a space for Black women. And Johanna and Rowan, they were very receptive to it, and they were just like, okay, well, do it. And so I do know that, and I'm not gonna speak where she can say it, but I do know Beth is also expressed. She also expressed that concern, and Rowan just kind of brought everybody together. Like there was Kiana. Kiana works for Women's Theater Festival. She's one of the administrators there, and then Rowan knew Amanda through you. She met you through some event, and then Johanna and Rowan knew Beth, and so we all were kind of like, Rowan brought us together and said, "Okay, go start," and
Nice.
And we created Femme Noir from there.
Very cool. So you mentioned that there need to be a place for Black women. What in your history led you to that series to express that, where you had to really claim space for that?
Well, I performed at one of the Women's Theater Festival events. And I also have a 22-year history in professional theater. And and something I always experienced when I was in predominantly white spaces was this sense of, is there really a place for me? Right. And through various issues, through pay equity, through actually being given opportunities to grow my professional life and have good, meaty, strong roles, down to just on an administrative level, like where was I considered, and if I was considered at all, and going to and performing during Women's Theater Festival. What was that? That was 2019. And also I directed in a couple of their readings. It just, I saw where there was a void, and I didn't see too many women who looked like me. And I felt like it was just the same theater environment all over again. And maybe it was slightly triggering. I don't know. Like, now I'm thinking about it. Maybe that's what it was. And so when I was able to have a conversation with Johanna, and I had a couple conversations with her, I really came to her and I was like, this is needed. And Johanna, and I knew Johanna would be receptive. Maybe that's why I went to her. And also she was kind of saying, like, I know we need to work on this. And so that's kind of what made me say something. And I'm sure Amanda and Beth have another reason.
Now, for the audience, I just want to clarify, Rebecca, you're in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, I'm in Raleigh.
We know each other.
Yeah, Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm in my garage.
Oh, hey, garage. Hey.
Look at the
Very
garage.
nice. Very
good.
The
fuse box.
The power box, yeah. And then Amanda and Elizabeth, you two are not in North Carolina. So if you want to introduce where you're from, where you're representing.
I am from Atlanta, Georgia.
And I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, but I reside in Columbia, South Carolina.
Very cool. And we spoke briefly before the phone call that Amanda and Elizabeth are teachers. Is that correct? Okay, so you also bring. I only mention that because of the fact that we were talking about theater spaces, theater administration, but also bringing in education from a theater perspective as well. And so I think it's really refreshing from my own personal background in history to see two Black female teachers who teach theater in the education system, because it wasn't a part of my experience. So hats off to you. Kudos. But that's something that I actually do want to speak to, because one of those things, I love, Rebecca, that you said maybe it was triggering, but it was all, it's also reality. It was real, right? And I think there's a lot of mythos that's attached to Black actors or Black technicians in theater, and one of those is that there's not enough people who are trained. What would you have to say to that, ladies?
I think it's a hardcore form of othering and tokenism. It's not that we aren't trained, and it's not that we don't exist. It's just the lack of actually going to find us to bring into your institution. That's my opinion. Like, we're out there, we're trained, we're thriving. And so that's my opinion. And I always want more. I will always want more Black people to train in theater. Like, that's a secret pleasure of mine, to take over the world with Black theater artists. But yeah.
Well, you want to go more into that vision? Because I love that vision. So, like, what do you see? So what is it that you see now as a theater educator, and also being affiliated with the Women's Theater Festival, and like just your experience? Do you feel like that there is a small percent that's reflected in comparison to the talent that's out there? Like, so what do you want to see? Like, if you were going to go to a festival, do you want to see like people backstage and people on the stage? And
that's just it. We have the Black Theater Network, and then there are other specific Black theater organizations. I want to see more. I want to see at every theater company, not only do you have Black people, but you have more diverse range of artists. So more people of color, more people on the ableism spectrum, more people on the queer spectrum. But I want to see more. We're not monolithic, so therefore our art should not be monolithic.
And I'm just going to go ahead. You're going to find that during this session, this interview, this conversation, I'm going to have invitations to unpack some words, because I think one of the things is that I know for me, I get so passionate that I just talk about the things under the assumption that other people know what I'm talking about, and I find that people don't know what I'm saying. So Monolith. Do you feel comfortable to unpack that word for the audience and kind of let them know what that means in relationship to the Black experience?
It's just in the most broadest of strokes of a definition. So not super detailed, but thinking that we are all the same. Like, on this stream, call, video chat, I'm not hip with the lingo. There's 4 people. There are 4 humans on here. And while we all may appear to be African American, there are things that are very unique about us that the other cannot do. So 1, having a space that brings us all together, but 2, a space that also recognizes and celebrates our differences. And that's what I really want to see in theater companies. And I know they exist. I just want to see more of it.
I love that. Ladies, anybody else want to speak to that?
Well, yeah, I do, because when you asked the question about, like, about bringing more Black people into, theater spaces, one of the things that actually caused me to become a teacher was because I did not get the job as a technician. I was trained at a HBCU to be a technician. And because I was a Black woman and of course a female, I didn't get the job because they saw me as a hazard. Because if something happens to me, I was going, of course I'm going to be like, oh, I'm hurt, da da da. And then also they saw me as, because I had an HBCU HBCU degree, they didn't see me as, my education didn't match up. So that's what pushed me into education. And I'm actually grateful it did, because now I'm like, I could teach my children, my students, I call my students my children, but I could teach them like diversity is happening, and you guys are the framework and the foundation of that. And as long as you keep on pushing the limits and pushing the barriers for that, then that's what's going to happen. And so, like, for me, I mean, and not gonna lie, it hurt my feelings, because at the time, I'm not gonna put the company out there, but at the time, the company I wanted to really work for, they were like, no, we're not, no, we're not hiring. But they end up hiring a white man who did not have half of the experience, half of the talent that I had, or the creativity that I had. But because he fit their already dynamic, little square box, he got the job. And so, yeah, it made me, I'm not gonna lie, it pissed me off. But I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, that was not meant for me, because I probably would have got like, they probably would have made jokes and said some horrible things or whatever. And so maybe I was not meant to be in that space. But that is something I'm glad that is changing now, that a lot of people are like, no, that is not fair. I have the same amount of education or more education than that person that you just hired. Why does my name have to stop me from getting a job, or, those type of things? So I'm grateful that people are opening their mouths and like fighting hard against all these boundaries and glass ceilings that were placed.
Mm-hmm. Rebecca, do you have anything you want to say?
Can you repeat the question, because it has something to do with?
Oh, so we were just expanding on Monolith, just unpacking that.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah.
What is a monolith? Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. When you go to an HBCU, you're more aware of how white people make Black people into a monolith. Because at an HBCU, you can wake up Black and go to bed Black. And when you're in that situation where where your blackness is an enhancement of who you are and not just who you are, you actually get to see other Black people. You get to see them, you get to see that they're nerds, right? And they're into Comic-Con, you get to see the fact that they're Republicans, right? You get to see the fact that, that they play rugby. You get to see the fact that, like, they are avid Ibsen fans, like, Henrik Ibsen fans. And you get to see that, and you get to hear that. And in those 4 years where all of you guys get to know each other more and more as you grow into adulthood, you get to see how because they are so given permission to be who they really are. You get to see that Comic-Con addiction grow into something that they can monetize, right? You get to see like how that Republican Black kid, ends up being a judge for, a superior court judge somewhere in some state. You just pray that they just vote the right way, or they judge right. But because of that, it gives so much power to our Blackness that we can take our Blackness and just like morph into these wonderful things. And the best thing I can say is that when you look up at the heavens and you see the stars, and you see Black matter in between the stars, and we all know that the Black matter is alive, and we all know that in the universe, that dark matter, it expands and contracts constantly. It's almost like it's breathing, right? And you see that dark matter, it transforms into different things. It becomes a black hole. It becomes stars. It condenses so much and it actually becomes light. And so in that transformation, you realize that Blackness is so not a monolith. I know I got way too deep, but
it was beautiful. It was beautiful in its deepness.
But that's where I always check white people, is that Blackness is all around you. It sometimes looks like purple. Sometimes it looks like red. Sometimes it looks like yellow. So blackness, the color, the melanin, because that's really what it is. It's melanin. Melanin is in everything. And so you're an absolute, complete, utter idiot if you think melanin is one tone. You're blind. You're blind, and you need some serious you need some serious cognitive evaluation.
Yes. And with that, because you brought up some beautiful points, and you brought up some really deep points and nuanced points, and all you ladies did. So the next thing is, what is the threat of the monolith? So in breaking this ideology of the monolith, what becomes an inherent threat, or how does it also, and how do our stories impact the collective, or becomes the dark matter itself?
I'll say it simply. What will happen is, this is what white people are scared of. When Black people, specifically Black women, are given a limitless space in theater. They're afraid that what's really going to happen, they're going to be drowned out. Because this is the thing. And Black women don't do it purposely. We don't mean to be so beautiful and amazing and big and creative and powerful and jaw-dropping. We don't mean that. We get up in the morning, we just inhale, and we literally heal people, right? Our voices alone. That's why white women do everything they can to be like us, because we create an awe around us. And once we are given an abundance of space in theater, the amount, and we've shared this, the four of us have talked about this, the stories that are going to be on stage, the people who are going to be willing to pay for these stories, to see these stories, the life changes that will then happen. It will be better than any church experience. It will be better than any choir. It will be better than any baptism. And everybody knows this. And that's why white men specifically love to drown out Black women's voices. Because white men know that when they hear a Black woman's voice and a Black woman's story, they fall in love with us. I mean, look at The Color Purple. Look at what Steven Spielberg did to Alice Walker's story. You know, literally, he fell in love with that story. And look what he did. Now, I don't think he should have directed it, but that was 1984. And so we're just going to excuse that, right? But look what he did. And you can tell that he made love to that story. And that was a Black woman's story. Just there's so many other white men who immerse themselves in Black women's stories, and how white people are like, right? So just imagine if we go outside of Alice Walker and Lorraine Hansberry and and I'm just gonna say it, August Wilson.
Say it again for the people in the back or whose phone glitched on them while watching this.
Oh my God, August Wilson. Okay, let's say this. The brother has a lane, and we respect the lane, right? We're glad he has a lane. We're glad that white people saw his light-skinnedness and felt safe enough to produce his stories, right?
She said that.
That belittled Black women, right?
He did that.
that belittled and marginalized Black women, right?
It's interesting.
We're glad that he had that lane, and he still has that lane posthumously, right?
Yes, he does.
So we appreciate that, ancestor. Thank you. Okay. But we all know, right? When you learn that there's more to learn. You learn there's more to learn, so much so that you learn that there's so much to learn that you won't learn everything, right? Okay. So now that we know that opened up a portal, also, which I call, this is now the Black excellence movement, right? That I've just put on there. This is the Black excellence movement. I'm just gonna keep saying it until a group of people actually start claiming that this is the Black excellence movement. And so now we're in the Black excellence movement. Now I think what's happening is people are going, oh, okay, so thank you, August Wilson. Thank you, Lorraine Hansberry. Thank you, Zora Neale Hurston. Thank you, all you people. Okay, so now we're smarter, and now we know that we can expand our voice, right? Right? We can go a longer distance. We now have made white people uncomfortable, so much so that now they're kind of doing this thing called shutting up, right? Which is amazing to Black people. We're like, what? White people can be quiet? Oh, crap. So now, as they're quiet, because they know, they're like, oh, we didn't invent anything, right? Oh, we didn't start anything. Oh, okay. So now that they're quiet, because we've checked them, right, with evidence-based information, now Black women are starting to speak up and speak out, and we're doing and another thing, right? And another thing are all these beautiful Black women playwrights that are coming out from the prison, the artistic prison that they've been forced to stay in, and with their anger, right? Just like with any brother or sister been released from the prison, there's a little bit of anger there, right? And so just with that, more beautiful stories are coming out, because now they like, oh, okay, you held me back, now I'm gonna talk about this. And so that's why I'm really excited, and that's why I'm so glad we're doing this work, and that's why I'm glad we're opening this portal for Black women, because just imagine all these women coming out of this artistic prison, and they gonna drop it, and white people are shutting up. So it gives us this space to do something. And I think this is, it's perfect timing. The Femme Noir is coming in, and it's about to be ignorant.
So you touched on something that I really loved about coming out of the prison and speaking your voice, and I'm like, that's me. So I can relate on a personal level to what you're saying. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on is the all evocative taboo word anger in relationship to Black women. So as artists and as writers and actors, how would you guys advise, guide, what intelligence do you put out there for the Black woman, or a love letter, if you will, the Black woman, and her embracing her anger, but then also with that unpacking the full spectrum of her emotions? And do y'all have any challenges with that still within the way that our society still collectively stereotypes Black women?
In our mission statement, it literally says we are angry, we are divine, we are exuberant. And I agree with that. I am angry, but I'm not about to scream and yell unless that's how I want to express my emotion. But that anger I think it's a piece of our power, that is a piece of our fuel that keeps us going, and not like to harbor hate, but it's where a lot of our artistic creativity comes from, because we have been repressed for so long. That's just a small piece of it, and only a small piece of my perspective on it. So yeah.
And I just want to touch on this part, and this may be charged, but it's the acknowledgement that we are all in the Bible Belt, and it's the acknowledgement that many of us are steeped in Christian tradition, and that Christian tradition also kind of guides the way on how that anger is expressed, what is acceptable anger and what is not acceptable anger. So my access point asking this question is, can we get the full breach of our stories if we parlay to acceptable anger?
Well, one of the things that I've, and we talked about this in our meetings, is like we need to own our anger, which is why we said in our, in our letter, and you just posted on the website for WTF, we say that we are angry because we are owning it. We're not going to sit here and hide behind that word anymore, or we're going to wear it like a badge. Like that's what we just agreed on, because it's like at this point in life, we've already been sexualized. We've been raped over and over again by, not only our own culture, but by other people's culture, and not even just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So it's like, in that aspect, of course, we already, and I hate this, well, I'm going to use the word because it is true. We're almost like embedded with the word of anger. Like when you automatically think of a Black woman, you automatically assume angry. So we were like, you know what? We're gonna own it. If they're gonna call us that word, or they're gonna put that label on us, then that is something that we're just gonna be like, you know what? That's fine. I'll wear it gracefully. So with that, it's like we want women to recognize, feel, express that anger, but make sure that when you are talking about it, or when you're going to address it with somebody else, that your words, that they hit a punch, but it's an intellectual punch. We want to make sure that, yes, I want to tell Amanda, yes, I am angry with you, but however, because I am angry, I'm not going to let that dictate my relationship, or my work relationship, or a situation I have with you. We're going to go past this. We're going to put that situation aside. We'll deal with that when we're finished with this project or event, and then we will address that later on. Or if we cannot wait to put it aside, then we need to address it now. But we need to make sure that we are, when we have that moment to say, yeah, I'm angry and I'm about to fight this person or whatever, be like, hold on now. That's what society wants me to do. But I'm not going to give society that satisfaction of actually acting on that. So I'm going to be the professional. I'm going to be the bigger person here. And I'm going to be like, you know what? I'm going to do my job. And then after I finish doing my job, then me and you are going to talk about this. And when you go ahead and you start saying that and you operate like that, people start treating you differently, because then they're like, you know what? I know I made her mad, but she approached me in a way where I couldn't tell if she was still angry at me or not. And when you have that, when you let people know, and they can't decide or decipher you, that's where you know you have them in the back of your pocket. Because now you can play this game of cat and mouse with them, because they don't know what's going to trigger you next. So it's like, we need to take that, and especially Black women, like, we need to go ahead and take that word back. That is your word. That's nobody else's word. Nobody else can say that they're angry. You're angry. And own that word. I don't care if you make it into a shirt. Somebody make it into a shirt and put Femme Noir on it or something. But like, own it.
I love it.
I agree with both Amanda and Elizabeth. The four of us have had beautiful healing conversations about our anger, about how we've been marginalized.
Oh no.
Oh no.
She paused.
She paused.
Why does it does that? Like, it gives you that face.
I know, all the time. It catches you in like the worst face. Like, hello?
But this is the face we give to people who call us angry. You didn't get it right, actually.
So it's actually perfect. It's perfect that it froze just like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in this pause, it'll be a nice moment. I just want to say hello, Joy, and hello, Johanna. Thank you so much for your kind words. It's nice to see you there.
Mm-hmm.
And because I just that she plugged away, and then she's gonna come back, I think.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting how, if we say a man is angry, and there are some times where if it's a Black man, it gets dangerous, but for the most part, it's like, yeah, no, it's okay, he'll be fine. People don't really make a big deal out of a man being angry. Anytime a woman, especially a Black woman, is like, calm down. Now I'm going to speak to you slowly and Did you treat the man this way?
Right.
What makes you think I'm any different?
Right.
I think people have this stipulation that women, specifically Black women, are a certain type of angry, yet they don't give that same connotation to men, white men for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I almost, even though angry is very something much that I love how Beth said it, it's our word now, so we should own it and reconstruct it. I just always want, I want people to use the same type of angry for people. Like, treat me equally, okay? Like, there's no need to speak calmly. I've got this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm the same Amanda 5 minutes ago when I was happy-go-lucky as I was right now when you told me the news to upset me.
And I wonder where that comes from, the idea of Black women in our anger and what we show, or how we show up in our anger. I don't know if it's Angela Bassett with the setting her husband's man stuff on fire, or if it's like somebody saw something and it's like a bad, like, I don't know where it comes from, but I think that it also leads into why more stories are important, right? Like, while we have to see Black women who are dealing with things in a very human way or just a regular way. So I think that's a good point.
Before that. It started before Angela Bassett. I mean, I guess the movies kind of like enhanced it. But if you ever, I hate this, and I don't like talking about slave stories, but if you ever go back and read some slave stories, especially particularly Black women's slave stories, when they got angry with their master, especially like they sold their kid off or they sold their husband away or whatever, or killed their husband or however the story might have been, how she showed her anger was never full out, I am angry with my master, or I'm angry with whatever. She either poisoned his food, did little things to make his life inconvenience. So in that aspect, that's where we, it's been like, and my mother teaches me that all this time, especially growing up. She was like, when you're angry, don't let the other person know that you're angry with them, because then they're going to use that against you. She's like, you gotta play the game with them. And I was like, why would she say that to me? But like, getting older and I'm understanding, I'm like, oh, I understand. So like when Angela Bassett, her phenomenal, iconic scene, that's where it became more of like, now let's be vibrant about it. Let's showcase it. But before then, if you look at any documentations, it always showed it was little inconveniences. I'm gonna make you a pie, and it might have something surprised in it. Or I'm gonna kill off your entire family and let you live to see them kill, and I might kill off your entire family because I'm making them dinner anyway. You don't know, or just little things like that. So it's interesting how the quiet anger has developed into the loudest anger. That progression is very interesting to me.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring in Johanna's comment. She says that I think Beth is making the case for an infinity space away from the white gaze. When we were talking about, and Johanna, please correct me if I'm off, but I think this was when we were talking about Black women and our anger in relationship to white men, and how when a white man expresses his anger and then a Black woman expresses her anger, they're not valued, or they're not seen in the same way. It's like, Black woman, shh, white man,
Amanda
be
said
loud. Oh, Amanda said that. Did I say? Okay. Was she? Okay, Amanda. Thank you. So are you making an affinity space away from the white gaze? Is that something that is part of the conversation when speaking about Black theater, or even having a space to talk about your emotions?
So I'm not sure if I was super specific when I first introduced what Femme Noir is to the people, but it's only women of color allowed.
Oh.
There's no, like, in order, I love the way, okay, another one of the chief women, Kiana Alexander, she couldn't be with us tonight, but Kiana has a lovely way of phrasing things. She does it way better than a lot of us. But she said, in order to be inclusive, we have to be exclusive. And so in order for us as Black women to thrive and to give our best selves, not only to ourselves, but to the world, we need a space where we could just be us. Yes, there's Kiana. That is Kiana, and she's the 4th chief woman of Femme Noir. Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Kiana.
So I'm gonna be like, "Hi, friends."
Yes, she always says, "Hi, friends," and
Hi, friends.
stand by.
Hi, friends. In order to be inclusive, we have to be exclusive. Nice to be here, Andrea.
It's nice to meet you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you
And
for having me.
that's a great quote that you just said. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And that actually brings up a good point that I wanted to parlay into, which is, we're coming out of COVID. Hopefully, cross our fingers. And we're getting back into theater spaces. We've had these conversations. We've unpacked all the things left and right. Everybody knows what's going on as far as Black people and people of color in theater spaces. There's a lot of mission statements from theater companies saying, "We love you, Black people. We're gonna do better." So with that, if we are being exclusive, so is it? Could you say it again? Could you say it again? Could you?
So, in order to be,
Yes, please. Yeah,
you want to get the photo back?
yeah. Yeah.
Space, Kiana. Okay, this is serious space.
Okay, so in order to be,
friend, I'm going to repeat myself. Okay, say it, Amanda, like she would say it, and then I'll move her face.
In order to be inclusive, we have to be exclusive.
Okay, in order to be inclusive, we need to be exclusive.
Yes.
Okay.
And then she would end it with a face like this.
You didn't do that.
That was perfect.
Okay.
That was perfect.
Thanks,
so with that,
mm-hmm.
What does that look like for theater? If you have people, thank you, Beltline and Broadway. She did it. She put the quote, "In order to be inclusive, we need to be exclusive." Thank you so much, Lauren. So, like with that, what does that look like for theater when we've had these conversations and you do have a lot of theater companies who, if you looked at their board and you looked at their employees are white, everybody's white, but they want to, they speak a good speech about inclusivity. So where does that relationship lie with people of color?
And you see, and that's just it. You said it yourself. You look at their board and you look at their staff and they're still white. So what? You think I'm only good for your stage? Don't pimp me out. I'm good for multiple areas. I am a director and a producer. I don't step on the stage. So I'm looking at, are they really trying to dismantle the structure, or are we just frosting on top of a cake?
Right. It's trendy. It's trendy. This is it's really trendy and sexy to say these words and hit these bullet points and and have these little targets, right? My thing is, I want to know where these theater companies are going to be 10 years from now, and 15 years from now, and 20 years from now. Like, what are they going to look like? What productions are they going to put on? Where are they going to pour their money, right? Now, I will say this, okay? You have your theater companies like Second City, right? I was at Second City. You have your theater companies like Steppenwolf, right? Andrea, you know these companies because you work in Chicago, right? You have your companies like Goodman, right? These are these big, gigantic, very profitable theaters that celebrities are on those stages, right? And they're part of the ensemble, right? And about 20 years ago, late 90s, early 2000s, it became really hot for these white, profitable, very powerful theater companies to have their black, auxiliary ensembles, right? Right. And they would put on these black productions, right? And white people would pay all this, like, I'm going to see black people perform. I'm so excited. Look at how they move, right? And very excited. But what ended up coming out, especially in the last 2-3 years, Black people started to really tell like what was going on all these years, is that Steppenwolf
wasn't putting in as much money in those productions as they were with their white productions, right? Goodman wasn't putting in that much money in those productions. Second City, and I know this for a fact because I was part of Brown Co., wasn't putting in that much money in Brown Co. that they were putting into Red Co. and Blue Co. and Yellow Co. and all those others, and Gay Co., right? They were literally giving us the scraps. We were eating on the low end of the hog. Okay, we were eating the chitlins, hence the Chitlin Circuit Theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I'm ghetto. Okay, so this is, and it's buzzing now. It's
but
buzzing.
It's your truth, so live in it, embrace it.
Yeah. I'm okay.
There's nothing wrong with ghetto.
I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay. Okay, so, but this is what so this is what was going on. And so now it's all coming out. Like the people who worked on those productions, from tech to producing to directing to acting and performing, now it's coming out like, yeah, we were given the crappy costumes, right? Or at our rap party and our where we were, stripping the stage, while the white production that was also going on they were catered this high-end Michelin meal, right? We were given Church's chicken.
Mm-mm.
No, I'm like not exaggerating, right? Okay. So, or like when they had to travel those shows, the white productions got to go, they got on the plane and they got really awesome suites, whereas the black productions, they had to go on a bus and they got like bare minimum. And this is Steppenwolf and Goodman. And this is like, even the New York, like high-end theater comes. So this is where we have to keep white people accountable and hold white people accountable. And so this is why the four of us get together and we talk about this, and this is why we have those fuse moments. Like we welcome Black women to come in and say, yeah, when I worked on that production, we got Church's chicken while they got, that. And so we can call this out, because what white people don't understand is Black people, we have receipts. We have receipts, and also we have this thing called memory. Right. And also Black people, yes, for a long time, we were afraid to speak out because we had to pay our rent, right? Because we had to put food on the table, because we were afraid of being whitelisted, not blacklisted. By the way, Black people, we don't shun people. Black people, we have a curse called forgiveness. It's a curse and it's a blessing. White people don't understand that, but they do kind of, because they know that we constantly forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I call it whitelisting. So for a long time, Black people were very afraid of being whitelisted. So we didn't say anything, and we would talk amongst ourselves. Right. We're like, yeah, y'all, let's wait for this Church's chicken. Right. But now we're starting to speak out. Now we're starting to feel like, wait, we have a village now. And now if I say something, Beth has got my back. Right. She's not going to let me go without work. Right. If I say something, Amanda's going to be like, yeah, because I experienced that too, right? And so she's going to back it up with more evidence. Kiana is going to say, oh, well, I got this theater company over here. So while they whitelist you over there, you can come work over here. So now we have a village, right? And now now Black people are speaking out. And now white people are going, oh, shoot. So now our game is called out. So why don't we hire a DEI expert, diversity, equity, and inclusion? Why don't we hire a DEI expert, make her a Black woman? By the way, white people, we know what you're doing, from Starbucks all the way to Walmart. We all know what you're doing. So the game is, we see it, right? So like they hire a Black woman, they have DEI expert, right? And she sits there and she crosses her legs and she has a nice little suit and she says all the great, wonderful legal verbiage, and they change and they create this policy and all this stuff. And life is really great and good. And then they think for years what Black people did, like, well, you know what? I'll buy a latte at Starbucks because, they love us, right? So But all the while, we're not talking about the fact that in Ethiopia, how does Starbucks treat our Ethiopian brothers and sisters who are producing the coffee, right? We're not talking about that. Same thing with theater, right? They put up these wonderful DEI lists of like, oh my gosh, it's wonderful, it's great. And white people want to call all this stuff out, right? And they want to be in the room. And see, right there, this is the problem I'm having. White people, you cannot say you're working on diversity when you sitting in the damn room. And this is why. Because white people, you have so much shit you've got to work on. You have so much internal trauma that you have to work on. And you're so busy trying to, I guess the way I can equate it is, because I always equate I always equate racism with rape. Okay. So a woman gets raped. And let's say, and racism is the woman getting raped multiple times. She's been kidnapped and she's been forced to be in this house with her rapist. And she's just being raped every day, all day, right? Starved, raped, abused, beaten, denied things, whatever. And then now the rapist is starting to go, oh shit, I rape. Oh gosh, oh my God, I rape. Oh my gosh. So it's wrong? Yeah. Okay, so let me write down the policies of how I shouldn't rape anymore.
And can I also just add to that? And then it's also the rapist who's crying and saying, oh my God, like I didn't mean to. And then it's the expectation that the person who was raped is supposed to hold the rapist's hand and say,
that's where I'm going with this, right? And so then let's have the rapist have people in there that has guarded the doors all these years while they were raping you, right? Those people were like, well, I was just, changing the light bulbs in the house and making sure and cooking and cleaning for the rapist, right? Well, I didn't rape. I wasn't the one that raped, right?
Right.
But you knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Right? Those same people are now calling themselves allies. By the way, I was really
it's actually on my list. So you go ahead and go straight into it, because I was going to say,
all you white people that call yourselves allies, screw yourselves, because really at the end of the day, you're not an ally. You are an ally, but you have to understand what an ally is. Ally comes from is in correlation with war, and allies are ones that fight with you because in the end they're going to get something out of it, and they know that. I don't want an ally. So I say, fuck white allies. I can't stand these white people. I'm an ally. I don't care. So you were an ally, but you were screwing in the light bulbs and you were cleaning the house while this man was raping me. And you knew exactly what was going on upstairs. Because you were cooking his food. You were laundering his clothes. You were making sure no one came through the door. And other Black people weren't trying to bust down the door to save me. Right? So fuck your allyship, because this war can only be won by Black people. Because in the end, when we win the war, we should be only ones that reap the benefits, right? And so going back to this whole thing with these theater companies, having these white people in the room creating their DEI standards, do you understand how ridiculous that looks? That looks absolutely ridiculous. So this is why I say white people in those white theater companies, my thing is, if you really want to really start the healing process and really create spaces, take your profit and give it to a Black theater company and say, here's part of my profit so we can be financially and economically equal. But see, white people don't want to give up their money though. See, that's where real end of racism starts. Now, I'm not saying that's everything. When you can give up your money and you give it to somebody, don't loan it. Don't create, oh, here's a grant. You have to apply for it and I have to approve you for it. Right? and then I have to see, because I'm part of the United Arts Council here in Wake County. I have to see, and we gotta judge your RFP. No, so all those white theater companies, Steppenwolf, Goodman, those big theater companies, New York, all on Broadway, take your profit and you give it to Black theater companies. Do that. Now, within your company, you have these Black theater companies, right? The little auxiliary companies. You budget more money for those Black theater companies to make up for all the years that you gave them a shitty ass budget. And then you pay the Black women just as much as you get paid white men. So I don't give a crap about the rapist now coming up with ways that he can stop raping. Because that's ridiculous. Because the rapist needs to go to jail. The rapist needs to be rehabilitated. The rapist needs to sit among other rapists and see his judgment. And all those people who were screwing in the light bulb and laundering his clothes and guarding the door and ignoring what was going on and maintaining the house, you guys need to sit amongst yourselves and start going, okay, let's heal this Black woman who's been raped. Let's heal the woman who's been raped. Let's feed her. Let's clothe her. Let's bathe her. Let's bow to her, because actually in the end, she's stronger than all of us, because she's still standing and she's still here, and she's still, after enduring all the abuse and the rape that she went through all these years. So if anything, I revere her. So let's shut up and let's listen to her, and let's serve her financially, health, wellness, opportunities. That's how those white theater companies really can do it. And let the rapist, or let the woman that's been raped come up with the policies, because she knows what is really needed, because she was denied everything for years. So fuck you, white theater companies, with that bullshit. Fuck you. And let me tell you, every single one of them that comes up with that crap, every single one of these white people that come up with this, I want to be a part of it, I want to be an ally, and I want to join you, and I want to heal, and all this other shit. We don't want you in our spaces. And that's exactly why, and I'm just going to say, they're nice. Elizabeth and Amanda are nice. I'm not nice, right? I'm not nice. And I'm going to say this. We don't want you in our space because we don't trust you, because you're the rapist. And once you, and I've never known a rapist that goes to jail and comes out of jail and stops raping. That's why there's the list when they molest. That's why we have the list, right? And so so this is where we're like, we don't trust you. We don't want you in our space, because y'all steal ideas, y'all take people's stuff, and y'all misconstrue words, and you guys become victims all of a sudden. So we don't want you in our space.
So that, I think that leads into a good conversation. Well, I have two points. Is that Becca said, Amanda, Elizabeth, you're nice. So do you have?
Well, I'm saying
no,
that,
I'm only meaning, like, do you have any contrasting point of views, or is it?
Blunt. They're blunt.
I'm sure they are. No, I'm sure
right,
they are.
Yeah.
I just want to get, I just want to see if they.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel the same way as Rebecca has expressed, or do you have slightly contrasting viewpoints, or you're like,
I always love it when she explains allyship to people,
fine.
because, and this is, I think, the third or fourth time I've gotten to hear her explain it, and I always learn something new. But it's very much so what it is. It's, if you're trying to create a space where we are showing up as our authentic selves, then you must remove yourself from that equation. And she's talking about money I'm talking about power as well. So she's saying give these Black theater companies money to sustain themselves. Also take yourself out of power. And I know that's really scary because you're going to be without a job, but go ask somebody of color who's from a poor economic background and financial background, and they'll tell you how to survive. You'll be just fine.
Right. Because being white and poor is better than being Black and rich.
It's probably the same equation.
Pretty much.
And it's funny that you said that because honestly, I was watching something the other day. I think it was Christopher Tucker. He was saying it in his comedy speech. He said, when a white man is wealthy, that wealth transcends generations. When a Black man is rich, that wealth, or excuse me, his money only lasts long enough as he keeps on putting out work or music or whatever it is. And the minute he stops, he loses that money or it's gone. And then when he said that, I was like, why would he say that? But then I thought about it. And when you hear about wealth in Black communities, it's very, like, it's literally like not even 1%. It's less than the 1% that has wealth, like Black people who have wealth. And when you look at, and I think, what was it? Biden was talking about this at one of his speeches where he was like, when you look at the Fortune 500 companies, majority of them are white men. And he was like, if you break it down to not even, looking at the BIPOC people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, they're not even making the 2% of having wealth. So it's like wealth is already something, if you think about it, it looks like it's so unattainable for Black people because we don't have the access, because it was never given to us to have that access. But we're able to get rich and quickly, but we're not able to keep the wealth or sustain the wealth. And so, like, when Beck talks about allyships, she's absolutely right. Because when you think about wars in general, when they like, okay, listen, we get together after this is over, we got to help we got to help each other sustain our communities or make sure that we're above the people who are causing the issues or whatever. But it's like, but you're not helping at the end. You're just making sure you're sustaining enough where you still have relevance. So what she is saying is true. Like when it comes to theater companies, and they're talking about how, like, right now, I just finished helping one rework its entire mission, its vision statement, its values, and how they're going to reconstruct it. They even added an extra vice presidentship because they realized that they're doing all this work, but they have nobody to check everybody else, making sure that they're still on their equality, inclusion, diversity, platform. If you're going to say you're going to do it, we need to have a reflection of that. And so they took it within themselves to check themselves and be like, okay, well, help us out. And I was like, well, this is what you need to do. And I made a comment one time and I said, well, if the people ain't willing to, and it's funny because I think Joanne's still on this, but like when I made the comment, I said, well, if they're not willing to make the change, they need to get fired or they need to be removed. But when someone of color says that, everybody in the room that is not of color are like, well, we can't get rid of John because John has access to this person and this person donates trillions of dollars to my company. And I don't want to get rid of them because then I will set John and then, my daughter might not marry John's son. And then, that's not keeping wealth in the family. And then that's how they break it down. They don't look at it as in, okay, well, you are not doing anything when it comes to inclusion or diversity or accessibility in your organization or even in this organization. Why are you here? And when we ask those hard questions and we put that in place and we show everybody, just that you show us that mirror of us being angry and sexualized, when we put that mirror back on you, you don't want to look at the mirror like, no, I'm not doing it. But that's really how it is. So I totally agree with Rebecca, because like really a lot of these companies are saying, like how you said earlier, giving us this love letter of like, oh, we're here for you, Black Lives Matter, da da da. But it's like, but are you truly living in that? Are you truly looking at what you have already, like your foundation of your organization, how it was based off of racism and segregation? Are you realizing that, oh, damn, I'm perpetuating the very thing I said that I'm not going to do no more, and I'm still doing it?
Mm-hmm. I'm just taking a moment to
Yeah, it really is what it is. And some people, I think people are just so hesitant to give up their power because like they're scared of change, which is the reason why we've been oppressed for who knows how many years, over 400. But it's like, it has to come someday. And as of right now, today is the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid of losing their power, Amanda,
Mm-hmm.
because they know that they're doomed to be extinct. Because okay, this is the thing. Okay, you know, in a beehive, you have your queen bee.
Yes.
And if you remove that queen bee from the beehive, doesn't the beehive die?
Correct.
Black women are the beehives of humanity. I mean, we're the queen bee. We're the queen bee of humanity. We were the first humans to walk this earth, Black women. And this is not an opinion. This is not, I think if you look at any anthropology book, you will see the first human was a Black woman with a Black womb. And this evidence-based information, you know, and so when you get, this is why America, they have this thing with Black people, because they're always like, go back to Africa, right? Okay. And then when we were like, with Marcus Garvey, we were like, okay, we'll go back to Africa, right? And he formed UNIA, and he got that ship, and he was about to fix it up, and he had people paying. They're like, okay, they started selling their stuff. They're like, we're going to leave. Peace out. Bye. And then what happened? The American government secretly, the intelligence government, secretly killed Marcus Garvey. Let's just say it, because we all know it, right? And they attacked his ship and ruined it. And they started within the organization of UNIA, started with informants, started pitting. That's what American intelligence agencies do. They started pitting the Black people against each other. And then the UNIA started to lose its power. And so then the question was, well, here's Black people, a huge amount of Black people about to get on this ship. And Marcus Garvey had this whole plan where he was going to bring that ship back and forth and bring Black people back to their motherland. And so white people don't want us here, so we left, but then all of a sudden they don't want us to leave. And the question is why? Why? The reason why is because if Black people left the United States of America, there would be nothing to sustain. We sustain the arts, we sustain their economic system, we sustain their healthcare system, we sustain their education system, we sustain every single industry in this country. And at the root of all that is the Black woman. Look at what we did. We helped NASA be created and sustained. What do? We educated these white men on how women should give birth and sustain these babies through a whole. Watch this documentary called The Georgia Midwives. Georgia midwives trained hundreds and hundreds of white men on how to birth babies and how to sustain a baby's life. Because white men started getting into birth because they're obsessed about women's vaginas. And so, and they try to figure out how to invade birth. And I know this because I was a birth worker for years. And so their babies were dying. And they were like, why? And their mothers were dying. They're like, why? And these Black Georgia midwives were like, because you ain't doing it right, honey. And so then the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology came to Georgia and sat with these Black women, and they're like, this is how you take care of them. This is how you take care of prenatal, birth, and postpartum. We told them everything because we brought that knowledge over from our continent. So if we leave, what do they have here? They don't have a culture. We actually established their culture. So this is why they have this love-hate relationship with us. They're in awe of us, and then they hate us. And they know that once they release us from this prison that they have put us in, called marginalization, they know once that happens, their voice becomes ridiculous. And they know that. And they also know that they will start, that everything that they produce, people start looking at it like, wait, you got that from a Black person. You got that from a Black woman. You got that. What did you do? And then they have to look at themselves and go, oh. So it's better to shut us up and repress us. And also, it's better for us to repress other Black people so that the Black people who aren't doing anything and sitting there looking and lapping after white people all the time, once they realize our own power and what we do and how we sustain and innovate everything, then those Black people start going, wait, well, why do I worship y'all? And they'll start to understand that their power is fake, it's phony, it's based on nothing. That's what they're really fearing. And then ultimately their annihilation.
I'm gonna let that settle.
I mean,
Well, by the way, and that's about the wealth too. That's why Black wealthy people, it's hard for them to sustain their wealth and really make it a generational wealth thing. Because what happens is when Black people get wealthy, I'm not saying rich, when Black people get wealthy, we're talking Robert F. Smith wealthy, right? We're talking Oprah wealthy. We're talking, Jay-Z. I think Jay-Z just has the numbers, but mentally he's not really wealthy. But I'll just go. I'll give him something. We're talking on the level of the African brothers and sisters, like the Nigerians and the Ghanaians and those people and the Kenyans who are billionaires, right? That kind of wealth, the wealth they're able to pass. When you get to that level, you're entering into spaces where you're seeing how white people gain their knowledge and their know-how, right? And you're going, y'all ain't shit, right? But you know that if you go out and tell other Black people what is going on, the criminal activity, right? The theft of ideas, the lack of innovation, and the nefarious behavior amongst themselves. If you go out and you tell these, and by the way, my dad was over mergers and acquisitions, and he helped to regulate the economic system here in the United States. He worked for the Federal Reserve Bank. So my dad would come home and sit down. He wouldn't give me names and numbers, whatever, but my dad would tell me these things about how all the banks in the United States are run by the mafia. Some are by one group of mafia, another group of mafia. And he would literally drive down. We would go in different cities and he would say, that's the Russian mafia, that's the Puerto Rican mafia, okay. Banks are mafia run. Mafia, and they're sustained by the mafia too. Okay. So this country, so when you start getting in certain spaces, and when a bank wanted to acquire another bank, my dad had to sit in with mafia godfathers and have these conversations. And every Christmas we would get big, huge spreads of cheeses and wines and these baskets that were thousands of dollars. And my dad would have to turn them away. He's like, I can't take that, because these big mafia heads would give my dad these things because they wanted to acquire a bank. Okay, so anyway, so I'm not coming from dummy. I'm not coming from stupid. I'm telling you this. And so once people start, when people get in these spaces and they see the wealth and Black people, if they go out and they say, if Oprah went out and said what she saw, what was going on, he would either be dead, imprisoned, or called crazy, and be broke. Look at what happened to Madam C.J. Walker. Look what happened to all these other wealthy Black people who went around. And then another thing is a no-no when you get that wealthy. You can't share your wealth with other Black people, because if you share your wealth and your knowledge with other Black people, you either be dead, imprisoned, or called crazy. So what they do is they hoard their knowledge, they hoard their wealth to protect them and their offspring.
So you're bringing up some really, you're bringing up, so if we brought that back to theater, what does that mean and what does that look like? So I know that there's also part of the conversation where people are wanting to hone in on,
right,
Black wealth to support Black theaters.
Okay, and I'm gonna say, and I'm really gonna shut up after this. I really am, Andrew. I really am.
No, go ahead.
But it's the same thing. If you want to control a group of people, you control them with three things: with money, with currency, right? With staples such as food and health. Okay, so you ration the amount of food that they get and what kind of food they get, right? And once they get sick from that food, you also ration the type of services that they get. And finally, you control their mind through media. Okay? So that's why we're in a business that's very powerful. The arts. The arts is a part of the media because whatever we put in front of people's faces, it triggers certain things. It opens people's minds. That's why the government limits the amount of money that artists get. Because if you can limit what we do, you can marginalize and suppress our voice. Excuse me. So when you have these theater companies, these white theater companies, or when you have even Black theater companies who are struggling, they're struggling for a reason. It's by design. It's not because Black people don't know how to handle nonprofits or profitable theater. We're very smart. Black people know how to handle business, and we taught white people how to do it, right? But the reason why we're not becoming successful is because we are not allowed in certain spaces and are systemically denied certain funding. And they know this. Because if we were given the money that we deserve and reflected in the work that we do, imagine the propaganda that we'd be able to spew out there. And the minds that we would be able to convert and even white people's minds that we would be able to open up and expand. We would have a lot of white folks that were guarding the door say, well, what the hell? I thought you said that this was going to benefit me to guard this door. Oh, so you were planning all along to basically attack and come through this door and kill me first. So that's what they're really afraid of. If they were to give us access to the money, the capital, and in rooms and policy making and all that, because once we would get access to that, just imagine the messages that we could give out to the world through dance and song and theater and oh my gosh, we would literally start World War III.
I'm scared, Rebecca.
Don't be scared. I'm done. I told you I'm done talking. I'm gonna mute myself.
No, I'm not. I'm not scared of you. I'm not scared of like you talking. I'm scared. I'm like, oh my God. Because what we're also talking about is that we're also talking about the importance of the Black story and putting the Black story out there, stories, and increasing the canon of the Black experience. But the counter to that, what I'm also hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's by design that these stories are getting blocked.
I mean, it's true. Think about it.
So I'm like, what are we to do?
One, we have to, and just like we said earlier, we talked about Lorraine Hansberry. We talked about, of course, we talk about, so much we talk about Alice Walker. We talk about August Wilson and other Black playwrights. And if you notice, like, those playwrights were selected because they had a group of white people who supported them or who helped fund them or who was like, you know what, man, I don't have a show this month. You want to put your show on? And that's how that happened. And that's why they've become mortalized and glorified as the Black pivotal of the Black family or of our experiences in America, whatever. But that's not the true experience or the true reflection of every Black person in America. So when those literatures of for Coleman, when the rainbow wasn't enough, or when you have Mama Bottom or Mama Rainey Bottom, and then you have thank you. Then you have To Be Young, Gifted, and Black, and all these other plays that are at the front that everybody studies every February
Mm-hmm.
to talk about the Black experience, that's why we have this issue now where it does not look like the stories that are coming out look like the stories that they have read in the past. So when you have a white gaze that determines what plays goes on stage and it does not reflect what they learn in college based off of the literature I just told you earlier, then that's why we have these issues now of like, well, Amanda's story doesn't sound correct. It doesn't sound like what August told me, so I'm not going to put on Amanda's show. Or it does not sound like Becca's story of, of being a mixed girl in a community of North Carolina. I don't want to put that on. So we have that issue, which is why a lot of people are like, well, shit, if you're not going to put on my work in your white theater, then I'm going to go put on my work at my friend's theater or find a bar that does not doesn't mind me turning half of their venue into a stage for me to do my show, or talk to a museum and see if I can have like their floor that they normally would have banquets on to do my show. And so that's where we have become creative in creating spaces for us to do our show, whether that be in a building or outside or whatever. We're going to create our own space to tell our own story. So now people are having different perspectives of their story put out there, and people are realizing, oh, not every Black person is poor. Not every Black person comes from the ghetto side of Chicago. Not every Black person comes from the deep South of Charleston, South Carolina, where all they're taught is you're going to speak Geechee and Gullah for the rest of your life and not amount to anything except for ring people up at Walmart. That's not the life that was put out there. People are becoming better. People are becoming professionals and professors and different types of things. So it's like when you see that the story or the narrative has changed according to what you were taught, then what you taught or what your education was that correct or not? And then that's where we come into the whole thing. Like, I do this all the time with my students. I tell them all the time, it's like, when you look at literature, you got to look at, I always make them research what was going on, what historical events was going on during that play.
Right.
Because if you take a play out of its context or out of its culture where it's relevant, then and you look at it for what it is, then it is, it's just a play about a woman, a woman and a husband, blah, 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 having children, whatever. But when you look at the historical events that created that play and made it to what it is, then you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense because that's a reflection of its community.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why, like, when we talk about putting out stories or the Black stories and having Black people communicate and talk about what is true to their heart, what is near and dear to them, or what they've suffered or what they've gone through, or what excited them, what brought them life, or what, no one wants to hear about those stories. Everybody wants to hear the struggle story, the rags to riches story, because that's what makes money, not the happy story. It's the rags to riches. So we have to, one, out of us as a community, we need to break that. And two, we have to tell people that that's not our story. Now, not every Black person is poor. Not every Black person is ghetto. Not every Black person is fast or a sapphire or some type of sexual object for you.
That's why the Cosby Show was so profound.
What was that?
That's why when I was growing up in the 80s, my life was, my dad was an executive banker who had very strong political connections. My mother was a Chicago public school teacher who was a huge, I'm going to say a curse word here in North Carolina, but she was a union advocate. Here in North Carolina, it's you're cursing somebody out when you talk about the union.
Because I was like, where's the curse word? And then I realized where I was like, oh yeah,
union.
Yes, yeah.
Labor and supporting laborers. Huge eye roll, I hope you see. So, and I said I was going to shut up. Oh my God. See,
no, please, no.
This is why it's so hard for me to talk about.
This is what the space is about, right? This is a space.
Are so ignorant when what is going on in our world. And it's so many Black people have had to not only live it, but we've had to study it through our grandmothers telling us stories, right? Our grandmother's going, Becky, let me tell you about your great-grandfather. He was the first Black man in Neshoba County to own his own land, and he had his own livestock. And they got it from the white man across the street named John Marshall. Oh no, Bill Marshall. Bill Marshall. He was the meanest man in Neshoba County. And so when my grandmother would tell these beautiful stories about Bill Marshall being evil and basically being a bully of the entire county of Neshoba County, and the stories of how my grandfather combated him. And my great grandfather wake up every morning and one of his cows would be tipped over because Bill Marshall would come in the middle of the night and tip over his cows. You know, it was these amazing, beautiful, and we all have them in our Black family. We have that elder Black woman who would sit in her chair and tell these like rhythmic stories with these wonderful words about how like, wow, my great grandfather he owned a lot of land and he would take his land and share it among the other Black people because he would keep acquiring land and he would just share it. It was like, where are those stories? Just like what Elizabeth said, where are those stories, right? Mm-hmm. But also on the flip end, where are the real struggle stories? See, white people always want to show Black people struggling and coming over like 12 years a slave, and I came home and I opened the door and I hugged my wife and kids. The end, right? You know, we don't talk about how when the Black men would get off the slave ship, and the first thing that the white men would do is they would take their sticks and shove it up the Black man's ass and sodomize them in front of the women who would get off the ship, while the white men would grope the Black women and put their fingers up their vagina. We don't show that in film, theater, and television. We don't show that when the Black man would try to escape and start a coup or start a revolt, that when he was caught, that what would happen is the slave master would take down his pants and have sex with him in his butt in front of everybody in the plantation, and everybody had to watch.
Rebecca, because that's too explicit.
Okay, and bucking, that's what they call it, called bucking the slave. Mm-hmm. But see, we don't talk about that. We don't show that. We don't talk about those stories. We don't talk about that when the white man would have sex with the Black women and the so-called master, and she would give birth to his children, and the mistress of the plantation would come and she would beat the baby, the Black baby, in the head so much she would kill the baby. So much so that this became such a problem that in the state of Virginia, North Carolina, and Maryland, they had to come up with laws that protected the white woman, that if she killed a baby, she didn't have to go to jail for it because it was a defense of her home and her marriage.
Defense, and that is what I'm going to go
so we don't talk about those stories. So because then in the end, where's the character arc? Where's the character arc? Right? Because there is no character arc. Because this is why Black women to this day, we give birth to babies, and Black women are more likely to die in childbirth, and our Black babies are more likely to die before the first year age than some developing nations in this country. And it's all purposely done because there is no character arc, because there's no happy ending.
So I'm going to, as that settles, because you brought up some great points that I want to come back to, but I wanted to take a moment. There is a comment by Jess Gephardt. Hey, Jess. I know Jess. Oh, look at that. It highlights. Okay. So Jess says, so this is an honest question I've been trying to verbalize. As a local white theater practitioner, is it enough for me to ensure that the rooms where I am working to create theater are purposefully and intentionally diverse? Or is it my responsibility to step aside and let those who deserve space to flourish do so? What is a better practice? Is it a hybrid of both? I don't want to come off as though I am in some way allowing the Black and Brown community to create art. I believe they're ... Is there more? I think there was just like a...
I think we get the gist of her question. I think we get the gist.
And it's he.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we get the gist of his question. I think Amanda and Elizabeth, because I think they have more of a business background and sense of theater. They might be able to answer this question better. But like I just said earlier, white people, you have to view yourself as the rapist for you to, if you have any internal questions like that, go, okay, so if I was the rapist and I raped somebody, am I allowing other rape victims, I'm like, where should I allow them to speak and say something to me and other rapists? So once white people start to see that they are the sustainers of a rapist system called racism, then you can substitute rape with rape with racism, and then ask that same question. And you'll get your answer, sir. Your answer is you share your wealth. That is the thing. See, white people are so busy. They want to do space. Okay, we're done with the space. Now let's talk, because we tried the space thing, right? Black people are
And the
still
space is not equal for everybody. The space is not equal for everybody.
Because also, you know what?
The same with the feelings being valid.
I might not want to be in your space. Jesse, I might not like cheese. Okay? Jesse, I might not like seltzer water. I don't, So that's why I might not want to be in your space. But Jesse, and that's you. See, this is the thing. The rapist established the home. That is your space, Jesse. That is your theater. That is your regional theater, your whatever you call it. That's your. So then you're saying, okay, in my space, I'm going to make room for Black and brown people. So how about this? You go, oh, I got this amount of funding. You know what? I'm going to give my funding to those Black people. They can make their own space. But see, white people always want to be next to, I want to be within proximity of Black and brown.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you could say, you do your own stuff. I come see and support. But here's my money.
You see, yeah, I hardcore agree. It let us have our space to create, and then also give us the choice to enter yours if we want. But to impose yourself into our process, especially if it is a show that is deeply rooted into the African American or Black culture, that's not where you need to be. Where you need to be is signing the checks when I tell you I'm over budget. That's where you need to be. And don't ask questions. Just sign the check. Okay.
Or give me the checks.
Blank.
And I'll sign them.
But yeah, when you ask the question, what is the better practice? Honestly, the better practice is to remove yourself from that. So when I'm gonna say it like this, and hopefully you understand. So when, let's say, a Black person comes to you or a brown person comes to you and say, hey, I want to do a show. That doesn't mean you go and create that space. You tell them, you do what you need to do. I'm here to help you, or I'm here to provide you with money. What if I was able to sign the checks? I would. Okay, well then but you know somebody who can. So that's where I'm like, that's where you come in and be like, okay, well maybe I could help you talk to this person for financial reasons or whatever. But for the better practice for you would be to let them have that space to flourish. You don't create that space for them. That space should already be established in your theater. And if it's not an established space, then you can actually either tell your people who's higher than you, be like, hey, listen, you know what? We don't have a space for people to meet. We don't have a space for Black and brown people to gather and to talk about their experiences, or talk about like what kind of show ideas they want to do. Maybe we need to go ahead and like say, everybody, hey, if you have a space, if you want to meet on Wednesdays or whatever, here's a room in our theater for you guys could have for 4 hours or 5 hours to meet and talk, and keep that space open. And I guarantee you, somebody's going to start coming into that space and start inviting other people into that space. Because you have to you cannot sit there and go out and seek Black people or brown people to create that space. That's not how that's going to happen. All you can do is advertise for the space and say, hey, if you need a space, it's here. It's going to be always open for you on Monday through Thursday from 5 to 10. All you got to do is call this number and tell them that you're coming. when you do that, when you remove yourself from the situation and you allow it to just flourish naturally, then that's where people start like, okay, well, this, this theater wants to hear my experience, or this theater wants me to cooperate with them or work with them or collaborate with them. And that's where you get a better experience. But to sit there and say that maybe I should make the rooms diverse, that's not going to help you, because people are going to look at you like, oh, you're creating diversity when you don't need to create diversity. Diversity is already here. It is already happening in your building. You just need to let them know that the space is there and back away.
Women's Theater Festival, the white people, they don't attend our meetings. I hope that answered Jesse's question. Johanna does not attend our meetings. Johanna does not say, she makes no decisions for Femme Noir. The board that is predominantly white does not come in and invade Femme Noir space. They literally are out of the entire process of the birth of Femme Noir to this day. They are just, Women's Theater Festival just said, we have all this power and space and room and energy, and we know that we can't hoard it. So we know that as progressive white people, it's a human duty that we have to share this. And that's why Femme Noir, that's where we stand. So Jesse, I hope you understand where we're coming from. That even when you have the space and you say, oh, Black and brown people, you can come in, just always understand that's really still your space. And that's your energy. So even as Femme Noir, we are very aware that we are in partnership with Women's Theater Festival.
But what that's also saying is making sure, like like Beck said, WTF doesn't like interfere with Femme Noir. So when we put on our monthly stuff for our monthly little events that we do for our Black women, all they do is advertise for us. That is it. They honestly, they don't interfere at all. They don't tell us, oh, I have this Black person no, they don't do none of that stuff like that. They're like, listen, this is your space. You tell us what you need us to advertise. Okay, cool, we got you. That's really what it is. So just remember that, like, if you're going to provide that space, understand that you're going to have to step away from that space.
Yeah, no, we understand. We understood what you meant, Jesse.
Okay.
We're just adding more clarity. Because also let you know that white people have always, especially talking to Black women, when white people ask Black women questions and Black women answer it, white people always go, they always have disclaimers. But what I meant was, but I just want to clarify. Your presence is clarity enough, Jesse. It's clarity enough. We love you. We love you. We appreciate it. We're so happy that you're sitting here and listening to this, because you don't have to be. But we understood what you meant, Jesse. We, as Black women, just like to expound and add a little bit more, because we know, Jesse, there's not just you listening. Okay.
So I want to touch back on historically Black colleges and having that experience of seeing. We touched about that, and we talked about the full breadth of who we are as Black people, and we also hit on notes about talking about our deep struggles, things that are repressed within the story and fabric of our history. But one topic that I want to talk about in storytelling that seems to be teetering a little bit on controversial and taboo is the idea of the Black imagination and Black idealisticness. Some people like to state the argument within the Black community is that we need to focus on the real. And then there's others, which I think is a really small percentage of people who are excited about imagination and about thinking about outside of the context of here and now. And you can really see it. This is not in theater, but you can also see it beautifully expressed in Lovecraft Country, where Misha Green, she like did an amazing job, and the team did an amazing job of really honing in aspects of sci-fi and imagination. And even if we think about novelists like Octavia Butler, someone who just really goes outside the realm of here and now. So, what are y'all's thoughts about that as far as different ways of expression? Also, Black joy can also be in that configuration of storytelling.
I'll talk about it because, like, as an educator, and I'm just going to use my experience as that, is like I have Black and brown, Latino children, everything else like that. So I always tell them, I said, we're taught that we have to act in the real. But if you look at a lot of your favorite books, like especially the books that everybody normally decides to pick a house on, is Harry Potter. That's supernatural. That's mythical. That's not realistic at all. So, but that is a realm that we have brought into reality. So why can't our kids or our students or our children or even adults, why can they not think on that level? And it's so much, and I guess it's something that we've also been brought up as like children, is that we're taught that you have to make sure that you have this ducks in a row. You can't be having your head in the clouds when other kids are able to. So I tell them all the time, I said, I want you to be creative. If you have a concept that is out of this world, express it. Because at the end of the day is everything that we have that is supposedly like just the ethereal is always grained in something realistic. Whether that be like Harry Potter, whether that be you trying out a new school, or you struggling identifying with your family, or do I belong here? Those are themes within a story, and those themes transcend any genre. So it doesn't matter about the creativity part, because we already got the creativity down. It's a matter of letting students have the voice, letting people have the voice to talk about the stuff that we're not able to really like put into words. Sometimes we're able to do films where we get to express that, or drawings where we get to express that. So it's like, so that's what I always tell my clients. I want you to be creative. Don't worry if you cannot find the words to put together your story. If you can find like materials or whatever to create it, that's what I want to see. I want to see you be you authentically being you. So that's just like one thing that I do for my kids. And then like just in general, when I like write stories, because I write plays for my kids, sometimes I don't have money to buy scripts, I'll be honest, but so I write plays. One of the plays I wrote for my kids was about talking about how Santa Claus was going to have a big bake off. And I use like random characters that we know about, like, Halloween and Easter Bunny and those type of things. And the kids grasp that because those are not realistic concepts, but they know how to connect those or act with those characters based off of realistic people. So it's like when we tell people that they can't be different or they can't be unique, they have to, you have to be trendy, you have to be based off of what's currently going on, then we're stripping kids away from their own like creative identity. And that's really how I see it. It's like you need to be your authentic you, whether that means you're a space kid who loves reading about science fiction novels and talking about, supernatural characters or whatever, then do that. But do not limit yourself based off of what society tells you is what you're supposed to do. If you're only supposed to, Black boys are only supposed to think about sports, there's not a lot of Black boys who want to do sports. There's not a lot of Black boys who want to do rap. There's some kids who want to write stories. So that's my take on it.
And I think that's a great take. And also, it also, excuse me, I'm moving around because is that the moment where your battery is going low, and I'm like, I want to listen to everything she's gonna say. My battery's low. I don't want it to die. So one of the things with that is that I think the way that I am internalizing is that you're also giving a model once again, of the importance of having Black teachers who are teaching people of color and how to navigate that world and those expressions. And oh, okay, there we go. Let me unpack from my own personal experience. So I think for me, one of the hardest things as a creator and a writer and being a Black female is also these things that are held as taboos within our culture and our community. So you said Harry Potter, and I remember when Harry Potter first came out, my mama was not happy about that. She was like, "What is all this witches?" And like that, like she's a spiritual woman. She's not held down in like fundamental Christianity, but she's just like, you don't all that, you don't talk about all that, and you don't need to be doing all that. And the next thing you know, it's going to open a portal, and you're going to be over here like calling the devil and don't like, you know. And I was in high school, and you know, so I did listen to some like, you know, that crying music, you know, I'm crying, and then you like lighting candles, and she's like, see, that's what I'm talking about right there, devil worship. I'm like, Mom, you're doing the most. But with that, that is still something that's expressed when I'm in a lot of my writing groups or a lot of Black movie groups. People still hold these taboos of like there's certain things that you should not be expressing as a black person. Um, so I guess I'll kind of give space to that. It's like, or it's also to these ideas. Like I remember one time, because I can also say in my experience that one thing that really triggers the white community is if you try to reimagine one of their classic stories. Okay. And one of those things was Peter Pan. And I was like, well, what would it be like if it was something and it was like, wah! So with that, there seems to be some type of threat when it comes around Black imagination and Black etherealness and when we put ourselves in situations which is outside of the context of the deep struggle. I guess I'll just give space to that. Like Beth said it, Elizabeth said so well, and the spaces she gives to her students. But has anyone else struggled with that, or has anyone else found that those are part of the conversations?
Yeah. I know for me personally, I find myself, I'm working within these confines, within these structures, and I'm like, okay, I have to do this, and this way. But then I ask myself, but I really want to do it a different way. So why am I not doing it the way I want to do it? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm literally in my bed at night saying, Amanda, I can lead the life I want to lead. And who is going to stop me?
Right.
No one. I think we always, and this is for sure a Black thing, but it might just also be just a human thing. We always have to give ourselves permission to be as great as we actually are. Because it's like the concept of never telling people your salary or how much you make. No, start talking about that. Start normalizing how much you make. You want to know why? Because that's how we get equal wages. Okay? That's how we get everybody paid the same amount. And if you're doing more work, then maybe we'll throw an extra 50 cents on the check. But that's like, you have to, I definitely like give yourself the permission to be great, to be exuberant. And I think since our history, while it's so rich, it is a dark, rich history. And we've had to find the joy in the dark moments. And so it's like, it's too much to hope for to branch out into these different areas of life. But there's nothing wrong with that. And honestly, it will be revolutionary to the young people watching you who are saying, oh, I've never seen anyone do that. And people have always said it's wrong, but it must not be wrong. It kind of goes back, if we want to tie this some way to the Christianity Bible, it's like, who told you you were naked? Like, who told you you couldn't be great? No one.
Oh, no, girl.
Yeah. This is why I like working with the three of them. I mean, it's so like, you know, Andrea, working with Amanda, Beth, and Kiana is such a cleansing experience. You know, there are times that we get together when we don't even have to work. We just talk. Because, okay, I'll just say it. Because there's, and we're all Black women here, and there are white people listening, but white people, close your ears. We all know that there are Black people who get it, and there are Black people who don't. And for us Black people who are just getting it, and we're like thirsty for more, getting it, like we're like, oh, I want to know more, because the more you learn, there's more to learn, right? And so when you're around like-minded Black people, you're just like, oh, thank you. It's almost an orgasmic experience. It's an intellectual orgasmic experience. It's a cultural orgasmic experience, which then leads to you are around women like the three of them. And then what happens is, and I haven't shared this with them, but what happens is when I'm not around them, they inspire me to write. They inspire me to like get stuff done. And I'm like, okay, they inspire me to figure out how to find funding for things. And this is why it's crucial to continue to do this work. Now, to answer your question, okay, so here's the deal. Black people, when we came over to this country, you know, we were deep spiritual people. We practiced things like Yoruba, you know, we practiced things, you know, we had spirituality before religions, you know, we did a lot of stuff, and we got
you pulling these books out of nowhere, girl.
But this is how you know she's serious.
These books ready.
This is how you know she's serious. She's not playing around. She's not pulling it out of her butt. It's like, no, I read my literature.
You know, and this is why, you know, I impress upon my Black people. It's great to watch film. It's great to sit and watch theater. It's great to all this stuff. You know, it's great to do all this great work. See, Johanna, you see why I fall in love with Johanna. You see why Johanna is my side chick. She's my side chick, yeah. She's my side chick. So, but so you do all right. You Black people, we have to read, because if y'all read Medical Apartheid, it will piss you off. But it'll also wake up your mind to know that we have to continue doing the theater work that we have to do. And this book is so apropos to today with COVID. Okay, so let's go back to what I was saying. Here we have this thing called Yoruba. Okay, I'm gonna put this right here. Let's see, let me put this for our brothers and sisters in the back of the room. The history of the Yorubas from the earliest times to the beginning. This by this brother right here, Reverend Samuel Johnson. Okay, this book is a very secret book, to the point that Amazon has breaks in selling it. Because if Black people were to read this book about spirituality, y'all. So this is why I have a problem with Black people like, whoa, their booties get real tight when they talk about, their booties get real tight, and little pellets come out because they can't get a real good shit because they real constipated, right? Those Black people, that's the ones I'm talking about, right? They don't drink water. They talk about, oh, I don't like plain water. Okay. So, those people, and then they hear about Harry Potter, and then they get all freaked out and they don't even shit the pellets, right? And so they get full. So those people, that's what I'm talking about. This is the thing. We have stories like Anansi the spider. We have been Black people have been using imagination and alliteration and symbolism and all this to really talk about the human experience. Anansi the spider, there is no such thing as a spider that talks, that be checking people, right? But that Anansi the spider series is something that's very powerful. let's go back. Let's even go back beyond Anansi the spider. Centuries earlier, there's this thing called the story of Isis, or we have Aset, Oshun, Aset. Gosh, you guys, I really should look. Aset, and her son, who, what we all know is the story of Jesus Christ, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But back in the day, Africans had that story long before this thing called Christianity came up. And it wasn't literal. You see, the African people, we knew that when we told stories, we weren't being literal. We weren't saying that God is a man in the sky that sits there and checks you on every wrong and right thing, or that there's this female entity that sits there and gave birth to this half man, half God, right? We all knew that all of this was symbolic, and it was a way to tell what was really going on in the universe and the world and our own power, right? So now we take that, and through the years, we tell other stories, right? Now, then that turned into Christianity, which then took it and said, literal, okay? Now let's go forward. Let's keep going forward in history, and let's go to 1804, right? To the Haitian Revolution, and this guy named Boukman. And the reason why they called him Boukman is because he read books, and he had this amazing imagination. And one thing he used, his imagination, he connected to spirituality. And from there, he started going out and professing and telling these stories about how Black people can create magic with their minds. So much so that they can form a revolution against these French people. That we can tap in to entities and spiritual stuff, that we can fight a war and win against the white people, the Frenchmen. And there started, his words were, put aside your white God and we will win. And so when we started to do that, we started going, put aside your white God and know that you are God, we will win. And so that's what happened. And that's how Black people, with his storytelling, with his telling people to tap into their magical powers, which now we call voodoo, right? And we have villainized voodoo. But really what voodoo is Black people tapping in to our magic, changing energies of rooms, talking to our ancestors, starting to make something out of nothing. And this is what we do. So I think it's beautiful that we tap into our imagination, and I tell Black people all the time, we have been lied to through this limited storytelling. And once we go into that and we expand our minds and expand our scope of Afrofuturism, right? That's another thing. I think we need to be creative. I think we need to use our imagination. I think we need, look at Jingle Jangle. Look how beautiful that Christmas is. Jingle Jangle was beautiful. And if you look at it, it's really telling us something that's really deep. Mm-hmm. We can create things. Anyway, I'm not gonna go there. But bottom line, I want to say, look at Afrofuturism. If we were to tap into our Afrofuturism and tell stories about what we're gonna be like 300, 400, 500 years from now, if Black people were to tell that, because if we look at Star Trek and all these future films, where are we? It's like one of us, right? It's always one. No, Black people are going to be everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that shows, what does it say? Africa is going to be one of the most populated continents in this world. What is it, 2050? Look at the brown people. Black and brown people are going to outnumber white people. So don't tell me that in the future when we can teleport, don't tell me that Black people aren't going to be the ones to invent the teleporting. And also, don't tell me that Black people aren't going to be the dominant people on the earth. We're already 90% of the global population. White people are 10%. So we have to talk about how we need to create this portal for kids or even adults and give permission to adults to say, write as creatively as you want, because so Black people know that there's hope and that they can do whatever they want to do. Even when the French Revolution, even when the Haitian Revolution, and that was the only successful slave revolt in history. Thank you, Broadway.
And it's funny, Becky, you said that because like when, like if you look at how people now start talking about spirituality, especially if you look at TikTok, you look at Facebook, social media, Snapchat, they're talking about spirituality and they're talking about how you are the author of your life, that you are the one who manifests and creates your, creates your entire life around you. And when you start thinking if you start thinking negative things happen. When you think positive things happen. So it's like when we start manifesting, which is what Becky was saying, when you start manifesting like your reality, that's where you get your Black joy. That's where you get, oh, these doors are opening up for me. Oh, look, I have connected with 3 other Black women. Now look at us now. We have a whole organization that we've created. So it's like when you manifest your reality and you keep on feeding into that manifestation, then then it becomes your reality. So we're in this process now where if we keep on feeding our creativity will become our reality, and then our reality will become the very existence and of everybody. It will be no longer a, oh well, I just thought of it. It will be now how I live, how I communicate, how I go about my everyday life. So I think of the Black joy, like for me, doing cosplay is my Black joy. Like I love dressing up. I love playing characters, whatever magical stuff I think of up here, I make it with my hands, my hot glue gun and a permanent marker, and I make it into my reality. So
you guys really should follow her on social media. Please follow her. No, seriously.
She's really
this woman
good.
Is beyond talented.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the costumes and the makeup, and it's amazing. It's amazing. Like she should really be telling Ruth Carter some stuff. Like it's amazing. But go ahead.
Thank y'all. But like, so like those are just things like I was told I wasn't gonna be able to be a cosplayer because I'm like, well, there's not enough Black characters for you to be a cosplayer. And I was like, you don't have to do characters. A lot of my cosplay is not characters. A lot of them are human beings. Some of them are just like ideas that I have in my head. So it's like I manifest my own reality. I'm living in my reality. So, and I'm just using that as an example of like that Black joy, that Black manifestation, that creativity, that kind of stuff like that. So I want other people to understand, like, if your thing is writing, manifest it. If you want to be a better writer, write on your mirror every day and say, I, put your name, or I am going to be a better writer, or I am a better writer. Because when you start speaking in present tense, you live in your present tense. And that's what I wrote on my mirror one day, like literally a year ago. I said, you know what? There's no Black cosplayers like me. I'm going to be the first. And literally, I think I am one of the first people to like be how I am, with what I do in my creativity. So like, that's just the only thing, like, think about it in that aspect. We need to live in our truth. We need to live in our reality of our manifestation.
And so with that, we talked about the older generation. Plus, if my mom is watching, I'm so sorry that I brought your name up, because she's just like, Andre, why you go telling all the people? I told you don't be telling everybody your business. So I'm sorry, Mama, and it didn't mean nothing by it. But with that is taking a look and an examination of older generations, and yes, that they may have their butts in a squeeze and pooping out pebbles around some things. So where do you find Black stories can be healing for the older generation? Because, and I say that because these are ways this is the first time. Well, it's not the first time we have. It was like in the 70s and stuff, and you have some outliers like Jimi Hendrix or Prince, and who are in community, and people would usually be like, "Oh, he crazy," instead of being able to give space to be that way themselves. So this is the first time where you have so many Black people who are able to be fully expressed in their authenticity.
Yeah. The
So
Black
where do you think that?
movement. Yeah. Black excellence movement. First of all, I have a different perspective on it. I have a very African-centered perspective on it. So I'm going to say something that's going to be very unpopular. Older people, it's too late to heal them. That's not why older people, that's not their purpose in life. Once you reach a certain age, especially your twilight years, we're talking 70 and older, they can heal. I think at that point, if they're not learning how to heal themselves and learning how to find the healing in things for themselves, it's not going to happen, right? Where we learn about the healing and and learn from stories healing us, usually is like teenager 20s, 30s, right? And then we start to apply those stories and go, like, right? Oprah calls them those aha moments. But starting in your 40s, you take all those aha moments and you put them into action. And then you help to blossom and fund the telling of those stories so that these older people or your generation can pass it on. So then you can have more stories for the younger generations to go, right? So once you hit 70s, you're in your twilight years. What you're doing is you're watching the reaction of the younger people, and you're embracing this, and you're going, oh, okay, now I see what my people need. And so that when you go into the ancestral realm on a higher level, that's the work that you're going to do, is to bring it back to the people. Okay. But those healing stories for those older people, I feel like at this point, all we're supposed to do is make space for them to love. And so they can enjoy the rest of their lives. I don't think we're here to tell them like, oh, it's time to heal. That's for them to work on.
But no, it's not saying that it's time to heal, is that how the stories allow them to heal. So for example, Jingle Jangle. It was something that was very eye-opening and revelatory for my mother, because it was never a time that she ever thought that you were going to see what she saw on film. And this is costume-wise, this is, the diversity that's on this film, and that it was expressed authentically. And that was something that really struck her in her heart, and actually, and in some respects, healed her in a certain way. So that's what I'm speaking to. It's not that, I myself, is my responsibility to heal Black people, and it's not or to heal the older generation, and it's not even the intentionality that, like, I'm writing this story to heal the older people. It's something that it bridges and connects something within themselves when they watch these stories and these productions being made, that they never thought that was even possible.
Yeah, I think, well, that is just, I don't see, I think that, again, it's probably going to be unpopular, but I think that really the work that we're doing and the stories that we're telling is really for the younger generations, to inspire them to take these and help connect their brains and these synapses so they can start viewing the world in a broader, more universal way. If the older people get inspired, that's a great byproduct of it, That's how I view it. Like, that's okay, that's great, and that's wonderful. I think where we are, I think now we should just sit and listen to the older people. I think I really feel that that's their role, is to tell these stories and go, let me tell you what happened to me. And then we sit there and write them down, and we produce them so we can pass it on to youth, so that their experience never dies. So yeah, I don't think we should be telling them the stories. I think we should be listening to their stories. That's just my opinion,
I agree with you, because like at this point, everybody's story is being heard and told. So it's like, but your grandmother might have different experience than my grandmother, whatever. But if we write it down and we put it out there, it's out there. Anybody can read it. Anybody can see it. Anybody can feel it. So it's like, it's not a matter of, oh, well, I have to make sure my grandma's story gets told so she can have some type of healing. That's not what it should be about. It should be about your story is being told so we can tell other stories. So we can flood the entire theatrical community, the film industry of authentic, original, unique stories that relates to us as human beings, that can connect to us on a transcend a different level within us. So Becky, I agree with you. Like, it should not be a time of us trying to, oh, well, we need to heal our grandparents and and the people above them. It shouldn't be about that time, because when they had opportunity, like, they fought for us to get to where we're at right now. It's time for that. Let them rest. Let them do what they got to do, enjoy the rest of their life, and watch us pick up that shield and sword and continue on with us writing stories, with us telling stories, with us breaking down barriers in theatrical communities, and building theaters and companies and putting out plays and those type of things. So that's why I agree. I totally 100% agree with you on that.
I agree as well. Kind of like what we've all been saying. Probably when our grandparents and parents were in their 20s, they were seen as revolutionary. But now it's the standard. And so it's the cycle of taking what they've given us and implanted in us as standard and as the norm, and then building on it even more to make it more revolutionary. So then our kids grow up and look at us and like, oh, okay, this is what you did. Well, I want to yes and this to make it even better. And so I'm happy that older people are still growing, but they tired. They're like, look, I have led a revolution and I have ingrained it into you. Can't I just rest now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that says it for us. I think I think these conversations, Andrea, are so exhausting for Black people. It makes us hungry. It makes us tired. Sometimes, and I'll even admit to you right now, I'm getting a headache. And this is why, some Black people just don't have these conversations, because it is draining to our DNA, but this is also why the four of us have decided to come together and form Femme Noir. Ooh, transition. We've come together to form Femme Noir so that at some point we can have fun with this experience called being a Black woman, being a brown woman, being a woman of color, that we can somehow find joy and fun in this and be as creative on stage with it as possible. Even, I'm not going to say humanly possible, because we want to transcend that. Like, we want to just become like almost these goddesses with the work that we're doing. And yeah, so I think, Andrea, I think that's where we've come to, and this is how we can conclude and wrap this up.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for your time, and I think that it's been a very revelatory experience, and we've learned a lot. And yeah.
And I have my booty shorts on today.
Very cool. Booty
Literally,
shorts.
when you were dancing, I was like, oh, sometimes we twerk to end our meetings.
Yeah, we do.
That's not a today thing. That's definitely not when we're live.
No, we're not doing that today.
Oh, that's right, because white people are watching. Yes. Just to let you know, twerking is also a spiritual thing. It's not just sexual, white people.
You're right.
White people did that spiritual, for real. It was a spiritual thing. So white people don't sexualize it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, we're going to go ahead and sign off. So thank you guys so much, and you have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, we're supposed to